We're a week away from the start of the Premier League. Just a reminder, there will be no Manchester United, no Manchester City for the opening matches because they're still on a break after their European exploits. Apart from that, it's a full slate, and you take a look at the bookies, Danny. They've got Manchester City as strong favourites. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously Liverpool last season, they were sensational, and they ended up walking the league. They were that good. But I just think when you look at the squad depth that they've got, I think they were fortunate last season. Yes, the goalkeeper got injured, but they had a number of players. I think there was seven or eight players that actually played 30 games plus started 30 plus games. And for them to find themselves in that position next season where they're able to do that and able to rely on the key players, I think it's going to be very difficult. So I can see why they've looked at Manchester City and put them probably as favourites because of the strength and depth that they've got. And I think that's probably what Liverpool are looking at they need to do because they are so reliant on, just a few players to get the goals in particular.
18 points though, Danny. It's a big deficit. City haven't gone out and brought in that many players. It's pretty much the same squad, isn't it, than last year?
Yeah, it is. But the one thing I would say, like I say, with Liverpool last season, there's no doubt in the quality that they had. They were absolutely unbelievable. But I think if you look at the front three of Liverpool, if anything was to happen to them as in terms of long-term injury, then there would be big problems. We saw it with De Bruyne at Manchester City when he had a long-term injury. He was out for a while. But if Liverpool have that, you've got your top three scorers, obviously your front three, but then after that is Virgil van Dijk as a centre-half. He's your next top goal scorer. So they need to get more goals from midfield because there is a huge reliance on the front three, and I'm sure that's something that Klopp's probably looking at.
Stevie, Danny saying Liverpool were lucky last year.
I did not say that.
Actually, I think you're right, Dan. I mean, they haven't really done anything so far. I mean, there's talk of Koulibaly. If he does sign, then that will make a huge difference. But I think also for City, Danny's talking about injuries to Liverpool, but if Aguero doesn't play a major part in the season, that's going to hurt them because we've seen so far that Jesus is no Aguero. Yes, he scores some goals, but I think part of the reason they lost so many games was, yes, they were bad at the back, but they were struggling to take advantage of a lot of situations going forward. So I'm not quite sure that City should be favourites. I still think Liverpool are ahead of them because of the 18 points, and they haven't signed anybody.
Shaq, what do you think?
I think Liverpool as a starting 11 certainly are better than City's, and you saw that play out over the course of last season. But at the same time, I understand from a gambling perspective, you're now asking this front three to play just about every single game for the third season running, and just the law of averages suggests that maybe that doesn't happen. If one of those front three goes down, obviously Liverpool have a real issue, one that I think City are more capable of dealing with, just given the size of their squad. But all things being even, everybody being fit, I think Liverpool runs away with it again. I'm going to lean on the side of all things being even. And Liverpool, for me, are favourites right now.
Danny, we talk about the strength and depth of City, but we've seen at the back, vulnerable. They brought in Nathan Ake, obviously, but we saw the importance of Laporte, who they missed out on a lot on last season. Despite the fact you look at their bench often and think, wow, this team is sensational. There are kind of similar players, aren't they? This is the issue. There's no strength and depth when it comes to defence. And as Stevie mentioned, if Kun Aguero gets injured, Jesus isn't the like-for-like replacement that you want.
He isn't. No, he's not a like-for-like replacement. But the one thing that we've seen with Jesus, with Sterling, even with Foden against Real Madrid in the Champions League, that they can play a number of different players in that centre-forward position. And I think what they have within their team is the flexibility. We've seen De Bruyne, who in my opinion was absolutely magnificent last season. He can play in a front three, can play in a midfield three. So they've got plenty of variety there. But yeah, without doubt, the question marks will be talked about as in terms of defensively. Liverpool were the only team to concede less than them in the Premier League last season, but the knock-on effect that they had was that by the end, Guardiola was only really trusting Fernandinho alongside Laporte, and he's probably the best defensive midfielder that they've got. They brought in Ake as well, and I think that if they do get Koulibaly, because there's a lot of talk of him coming from Napoli, and my own honest opinion, you give Manchester City the Premier League trophy now. Because I think that is just a missing piece of the jigsaw for them, because everything else is in place, but they've just got to probably shape themselves up a little bit defensively and get a good partnership like Liverpool have with Van Dijk and with Gomez.
Stevie, what was the wow about?
Well, listen, I understand if Danny or anybody else thinks that City can top Liverpool in the Premier League this year, but I can't understand that you just sign one player. Okay, they do need a centre back, but you sign Koulibaly, and then it's just give them a title. Are you having a laugh? Come on.
Where do you stand on this, Shaka? Give City the title?
No, absolutely not. Listen, I understand that City have addressed an issue that they've needed to for the last couple of seasons. And at the same time, Liverpool have been very reliant on their front three. I've had no issues with them for the last 2 seasons. Law of averages maybe suggests that comes to a screeching halt this time around. But pound for pound, I think Liverpool's starting 11 is better than City's, evidenced by what we saw during the course of last season. And that's where I'm still leaning.
And Koulibaly coming in, as good as it could be, Danny, like Pep hasn't got a great history of centre-backs.
No, I get that, but the thing is, like, in listening to what Stevie said, you know, you look at one player making a difference. Van Dijk. Liverpool don't win the league without Van Dijk in that team. They're an unbelievable team, but he's been the difference maker. It's been his signing that has elevated them from also-rans to champions. So one player can make that big a difference, as Van Dijk's shown for Liverpool.
I don't think we should forget, by the way. You know, we all sort of say, oh, Aymeric Laporte. The truth is, he hasn't got back to his 100% since his injury. And actually, he's pretty good, but he's not great. You know, everybody that's been around him has been so bad that he's actually looked like the supposed rock. I mean, let's be honest here. Laporte is good, but he ain't no Van Dijk, and Koulibaly ain't no Van Dijk either.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.